Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Between the Vines. I am Jennifer Phillips Russo, Cornell Viticulture Extension Specialist with the Lake Erie Regional Grape Program. Sorry, off to a great start. And I'm here with my co host, Andrew Holden, who is our Business Management Specialist on the Penn State side. Just a little bit of a background for maybe some new listeners as we are an extension team that is held by two land grant universities. So both Penn State University and Cornell support our team. And we are part of the Lake Erie Regional Grape Program, which is approximately 32,000 acres of grapes that range from not only Niagara County in New York all the way down through Erie County in Pennsylvania following the lakeshore. So welcome. Today is July 7th, 2026, and we're glad to have you. Andrew, I hear you have some pretty exciting things to chat about.
Yeah. So just coming off the 4th of July holiday weekend, there were some big announcements right before the holiday, especially for growers in Pennsylvania. Um, we've been following and talking to growers about the Refresco closure and the termination of their contracts. And there's been, a lot of conversations with politicians and uh, industry members across the board. And with such a tough time in the market right now, and this being a big blow to the market, we're looking for any possible solutions and any possible aid for growers affected by this. And it seems like Pennsylvania has passed a uh, budget that will include $500,000 dedicated to an emergency purchase and processing for 350 tons of grapes by those affected in the Erie County um, by this Refresco termination. So, that,
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Just to be
yeah,
clear, we represent two Erie counties, one in New York and one in
yeah,
Pennsylvania. This is just the Pennsylvania growers, correct? And
yeah,
only the ones that had Refresco contracts, or do we have clarity on that?
yeah. So right now they're in their press release they said 11 Pennsylvania growers
Mm.
um, will be the ones uh, receiving the funding or being able to sell their grapes to uh, the state of Pennsylvania basically this year. So they're essentially paying for these grapes to be harvested to the growers and paying for the processing. And the juice will be processed into a concentrate and it will be distributed through the Pennsylvania Agricultural Surplus System. So mainly to food banks across the state of Pennsylvania. They
That's
are doing this to help, those growers that were affected by this sudden um, drop of contracts through Refresco closing its plant. And hopefully that'll give growers the ability to pay for some of the costs that they've already spent for this year's great production. So they've already paid for their pruning, they've already paid for a lot of their input costs. It doesn't solve the problem of not having this processor anymore or not having the contract for these grapes. And they still will have a hard time finding a home for their grapes in subsequent years. But we're hoping that this will help them make ends meet, at least for this year, so that they can make those decisions a little bit easier for them moving forward on what they're going to do.
I'm almost at a loss for words because
Yeah.
for our listeners out there who might not know what is happening is unfortunately one of our processors just said we're not taking contracts anymore. So those growers no longer have a home. And like Andrew had mentioned, they already have inputs into that particular this season with no home or place for it to go. So it's very heartwarming to see that people or that the state of Pennsylvania is willing to help them through this very hard situation. It shows that they care and they care about our industry here. And yeah, I don't know what to say much more about that, but oof. Do
The,
we
the,
know? I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say the only other thing that I would add to this is, like I said, it's going to be helpful for those growers who already had costs um, piling up for this year's production, but we're also continuing to work with growers in the community and trying to figure out what other solutions or other ways that we can help this situation. So it is a difficult time in the grape market right now, but
Mm.
if any growers, want to collaborate or need help finding resources to try and help them in their specific situation or the industry at a larger scale, we're more than happy to try and help and connect you to any of our resources that we have across the states.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's a great point. And you do have both Penn State on the Pennsylvania side and Cornell on the New York side to help you
Yeah,
through some of that. Even if we don't have the answers, there's probably someone in our organization that can give some sort of guidance.
definitely.
I do have a question about the 11 growers. Is it safe to assume, since they have such a specific number, that they will be reaching out? When I say they, I mean the government, or is that how do the growers know who they are?
Yeah, like I mentioned, this was just announced late last week, and I actually have not spoken to any of the growers that I know that were affected on the Pennsylvania side yet, but hoping to do that later this week or later today. So I don't know for sure. It's my immediate feeling that if they announce that there's 11 growers, that they have already contacted them or they know who uh, those growers are. So if anything changes on that, I'll make sure to include it in our crop update.
Thank you for that. I'm also just sitting here knowing the process that we have gone through as the Lake Erie Regional Grape Program as sort of a go-between. So people mobilized really quickly, and to see something come out of this, if you ask me, the way things move in state and academia never goes very quickly. And this is
Hmm.
a very quick resolution, at least in my opinion, to something that we just found out this year because of the mobilization of our industry, reaching out to their legislators and just having a voice to be heard that we needed some help. So a little bit
Yeah,
of a feel good story.
yeah, and I think I can say that our growers being vocal and reaching out to their elected representatives to make them aware of this situation is really what got the ball rolling and got something like this uh, to be possible.
That's great. Well, we have some other news that have to do with your yields and what's going on. And that is, I mentioned earlier, today is July 7th. And we are really creeping up upon, especially if you are in the Pennsylvania side of things and a little more south, our crop estimation timing. So we suggest doing it at 30 days after bloom. We talked about this, I believe it was last week, or in our last podcast, we discussed this. In the last crop update that went out, we had all the information on actually how to do that, whether you wanted to do your crop estimation, if you do that manually, or if you do that with clean picking, 1/100th of an acre with a machine. We've got the crop estimation guide. Now, keep in mind, this is all set for Concord grapes. Dr. Terry Bates has done a lot of fruit, a lot of fruit. There has been a lot of fruit done on this, but he has done a lot of research on crop estimation in the Concord industry. And he has taken a lot of the guesswork out of it, first of all, by providing a crop estimation and thinning table. So, a guide on how to do that. And you just need to know a little bit of information from your vineyard. Number one, your bloom date, because it's easiest if you do it 30 days after bloom, or if you see it in any of our writing, we call that DAB, 30 days after bloom. Is because at that point in time, research has shown that Concord berries are approximately 50% of their final berry weight at 30 days after. Now, this guide, this table that he has given us, you can do it at 20, 25, 30, 35 days after bloom, even out as much as 45 days after bloom, knowing that a lot of you have over 100 acres that you're dealing with, and it is really hard to get out there and do crop estimation all on the same day. So this allows you that little wiggle room of when you get out there, but it's really important to know your row spacing, your vine spacing, and then you can calculate what 100th of an acre is. So most of us, or in general, we have 9 feet in our rows, and we have 8 feet between our vines, which comes out to be 48.4 for 1/100th of an acre. And if you do the math on that, on how many vines that is per acre, it comes out to be 6 vines that you would have to clean pick. We suggest grabbing 2 from your high vigor areas, 2 from your medium, and 2 from your low so that you can capture that variation and then clean pick those vines and weigh that fruit and then use your crop estimation guide to help you with that. Or in his research that Dr. Terry Bates has done, he has also created a crop estimation calculator. And this is just one more step or one more easy button that he has been able to provide. And I want to just sort of walk us through because I looked it up earlier and I asked that we put it on our website because it wasn't on our website, which is probably why I had a couple growers calling asking where they could find that. It is on the Efficient Vineyard website on the VIT blog, and Dr. Terry Bates has a run through on there. But I have asked our team to put it on lergp.com under cultural practices, crop estimation. So if you click that, you should be able to access that calculator there. And it's just basically that same information, but instead of having do the math, you can do the math. It does the math for you. So I want to actually pull it up for our friends who are looking at this as a vlog or video blog. Talk while I'm looking. Go ahead, ask some questions.
Yeah, it's the 7th, like you said, July 7th. So are folks starting this process this week?
Yes. So 30 days after bloom, if you had a bloom date of July 7th, would be today that you should start going out there, if not yesterday, for 30 days after bloom. I'm going to
Yeah.
share my screen for those of you who are watching this on YouTube. This one is where I discussed taking it from the VIT blog on the efficientvineyard.com. So you can see it says Concord Crop Estimation Calculator Beta. This was written, I don't know if this is 2024, I think it was 2024 actually, May 9th. So Terry has put this calculator right out there for you. It asks, there's a space for your row spacing, so your feet between the rows, your vine spacing, and then where you are in that process on that chart. Are you 30 days after bloom? Are you 55 days after bloom? Then it just asks you to click. Are you doing the vines individually or manually, clean picking the vine like I just spoke about? Or are you typically doing it with a harvester where you clean pick a particular length of row, capturing that variation? And all of that is on that crop estimation guide that we talked about to help you through that. So if you are clean picking it, because that's what I chose just for this demonstration to go through, how many vines are in your sample? So we typed in 6. Then I clean picked that and I weighed my fruit. And that fruit came up to be 80 pounds of fruit off of those 6 vines. Now I'm going to give it a little bit of an estimate on what my vine size is. And I would say on average, our vines in this region run, Terry likes to say 1.5 pounds to 2.5 pounds. So I kind of threw it in there as 2 as like a round number that we can all sort of have in our vineyards as an example. So what that comes up with, it tells you all the vines per acre, 605 vines per acre. You would have to do 48.4 or to be that 1% or 1/100th of an acre. And then you would have to clean pick 6.1 vines, or we'll just say 6 to help you out there. And the percent of final is 49% or almost 50% that we talked about because we said it was 30 days after bloom. The multiplication factor, and then the current crop estimation of what that's bringing out, and that's in tons per acre. So a harvest yield prediction. This is where people get a little bit confused when I walk them through this calculator, is it says 4.03.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're like, oh no, I only have 4 tons per acre.
Mm-hmm.
But remember, that's only half of the final berry weight. So you need to multiply that by 2 to get to your final berry weight. This calculator does it for you. But if you're doing it by hand, I just need you to know that that is only half. You have to multiply it by 2 to get your final berry weight. So if you that was all the information that you collected, you would have 8.3 tons per acre would be your yield prediction. Now, knowing what your vine size is, because you put that in there, it's saying your predicted crop load or your Ravaz index is 14. So there's a lot of information here. If your
Yeah.
Ravaz index is 0 to 5, then you are severely undercropped. So those vines could support more fruit. Not that you can glue clusters on, just letting you know that don't thin those. And then if you are in between 10 to 15, and we just said on here we're at 14, you are well balanced when you have 2 pound vines. If you are, your Ravaz index is 15 to 20, it says you're pushing it, which means you're getting to the overcropped situation and you're not sure if you'll be able to get those ripened. So all of this information is given to you when you pull up this calculator. Then it gives you thinning considerations. So based on the information that you gave it, we clean picked 6 vines for this example. We had 80 pounds of fruit. We were 30 days after bloom, and our vine size are 2 pound vines. We should not thin off anything from this because our vines would be well balanced and able to harvest or ripen that fruit for harvest. So there are also and we've done a podcast on these in the past. There are also fertilizer calculators out there as well. But crop estimation is where we are right now. And there is a Concord crop estimation calculator out there. Just to let you know, Dr. Jason Londo and myself, supported by the New York Wine and Grape Foundation, have been collecting other cultivars to try to determine if we have the same berry curve as Concords. So hopefully in the near future, this calculator would work for other cultivars as well. That was a lot, and I don't think I took a breath.
between your article talking about how to collect berry weight samples and this calculator, it makes it fairly simple, at least in my eyes, being able to get those calculations. Especially with the calculator, you don't have to go through the table and figure out how many days and what your vines, what your vines per acre is. It does it all for you. That's pretty handy.
Yeah, thanks. I think so. He's a pretty smart guy, huh? We'll have to have him back on. I did ask him if he would do this. I'm talking about Dr. Terry Bates,
Yeah.
if he would do another podcast with us coming up soon. But
Yeah.
again, we are in a very busy time right now. He did say he would be a special guest, but we just have to wait a little bit till we get through this crop estimation. But yeah, I
Fantastic.
think the guesswork is out of it. And I know, at least in my life, being as busy as we all are, the easy button
Yeah.
is very much appreciated. And this takes a lot of that second guesswork out of it. You just sort of drop down and enter your information, and it does it for you, like you said. So, a really great tool developed by Terry for our industry.
Yeah. And I know we're curious on what crop estimation will be this year following a few years of weird weather and, you know,
Yeah.
constantly
Um,
constantly changing growing seasons. I think we're curious too, so we'd like to hear from folks.
yeah, if you would please, I've had a couple growers reach out to me and let me know what they're seeing, but it would be fantastic to get more people chiming in before we get the crop update out there this week. So I have had some instances where people are calling me, telling me that it's a lot lower than they thought it would be. That it
Hmm.
looks like there's a lot of fruit out there. I just would like to impress upon the importance of knowing what your bloom date is, especially at this early time.
Yeah.
Because if you're off by a couple of days and you're really only 45, but you think you're 50, so it's something to actually be mindful of. And I'm actually hoping that that's the case with one of the growers that called in, that maybe the bloom date is just off a little bit.
Hmm.
So to keep watching, because per this grower, it looks like there's a lot of fruit out there, but when they did the measurements, it just wasn't sizing up. So fingers crossed that maybe
Yeah.
we're just off a little bit on our dates.
Well, and back to your point about taking samples from, different high, low, medium production areas. of vineyards and blots. I mean, making sure you gain a representative sample is probably super important too, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that, because we all know that they're not uniform. When we walk through, you can see that you've got a very
Yeah.
mature vine next to a layer, and that layer or dipper or renewal,
Hmm.
there's lots of words that people use in this industry, is going to be a lot smaller than the one next
Yeah.
to it. So make sure you capture all of that variation. And if you have questions and you're interested in doing that, we have all these resources for you. Please feel free to reach out via email, or you can find our contact information on lergp.com, and we can certainly help you walk through that.
Fantastic.
I am.
I had one last thing that we wanted to cover. We knew this was going to be kind of a short one today, but um, so I talked about the money that was released for our Pennsylvania growers. There's also some money that has been announced for New York farms. Not grape specifically. It is dairy farms, specialty crops, uh, pretty much any sort of agriculture that is not traditional row crops, but it is the New York Ag and Markets Agricultural Resiliency Against Tariffs Program is its official name, and it was announced last week as $30 million appropriated to provide direct payments to eligible agricultural producers, with the minimum payment for an eligible entity being $1,000 and the maximum being $25,000. And the calculation on how that will be paid out is not publicly available as far as I can tell. It is going to be made based on how many people apply and what your gross reporting or your gross profits reported are. So there's a few things you have to do to make sure that you're eligible. One of the main ones is that a farm has to have at least two-thirds of its federal gross income uh, from all sources in excess of $30,000 derived from agricultural activities. So it has
Mm.
to be, uh, your main source of income, essentially. But if you are a grape grower and that you fit that eligibility, you can apply for that. I want to make sure people are aware of this. New York growers exclusively, but if you are in New York State and you think that applies to you, go ahead and apply. You can do that on the New York Ag and Markets website. You can start the application. There are a few different requirements for that. You probably will have to have your income certified by an accountant,
Hmm.
CPA, somebody like that. And then I'm not sure when the announcement will be made, but sometime after that, they'll be calculated and they'll figure out what the rate is. Like I said, the minimum is 1,000. It's up to 25,000. So I think it makes a lot of sense for any growers who fit that description to apply for that to receive a little bit of relief on the cost side of things.
Thank you for sharing that. I think it's important to note that Andrew, being the business management specialist on our team, does monitor this often. So I'm very grateful that he's able to keep this rolling list of what's available for our growers in this region to apply for, whether it's
Yeah.
Pennsylvania or New York. That's a lot of checking, and we really appreciate you keeping your eye on that for our growers. So thank you.
Yeah. And if you go to lergp.com, I have put together a PDF with some of the grants available for both states, some of the programs available for both states, and try to keep that updated fairly frequently. Some of these new ones that come across, like the two that I talked about today, I always try to make sure I include those in our crop updates or in our podcast so growers can be aware of it. And, this one through Ag and Markets isn't coming through traditional channels like FSA or the USDA. So, uh, we want to make sure people are aware of that don't normally see those announcements so that they can apply. And again, the deadline is August 11th. So
That's
definitely
going to
make
creep
sure.
up. We
Yeah.
know with all the work that we have to do for crop estimation, that just took about a week off of our time,
Yeah,
right? So,
exactly. So apply as soon as you can.
well, thank you for sharing that. Andrew actually just touched on that, but just to reiterate, We try to match up our crop updates with our podcasts, and sometimes
Hmm.
we miss a week here or there. One more thing that I definitely want to make sure, and I know this is maybe the wrong audience to speak to it about, but please be mindful of road safety while you're out
Yeah.
there. We've got a lot of farm equipment driving down roads, and unfortunately, we still continue to have accidents, whether it's on our own fault or by people who are not aware of what farm equipment does. So please make sure you have your lights on, your slow moving vehicle signs out there. Keep yourself safe, and hopefully all will go well. We won't have drought. I'm calling it. Okay, I'm not calling it because then you'll all call me. Hopefully things won't happen as it did last year and we can move forward with a non-eventful growing season this year, except for our
Definitely.
friends in Northeast who had the hail and
Yeah.
our friends in the Finger Lakes region who had the frost this year. Oh my goodness. Like our one grower always tells me, he says, I'm not a grape grower, I'm a professional gambler. But we love what we do, right? Right? That's we love what
Yes.
we do.
Yes.
That's why we're here. So thank you for joining us for another episode of Between the Vines. If you have something that you would like us to chat about or you need more information on, please reach out and we will try to put something together for you or at least connect to you to someone who could have some information on that. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you soon. Okay, I stopped the recording. Yeah? You sure you want to stop the recording to the cloud?